Hello, Sales Nation. I'm your host, Will Barron, and welcome to another episode of the Salesman Podcast. On this episode, we have Ali Mirza, and we're talking about one of my favorite topics because I feel it's ripe for not destruction, but innovation, definitely, the world of sales training. Most of it sucks. We cover in the show why when your sales manager says you're going to do some sales training, most salespeople recoil in horror and don't want to do it and don't take it seriously. But then you, a professional B2B salesperson most likely, are listening to this episode to learn more about sales training. So there's a paradox there of what most companies are doing sucks, what is out there and what's available and the information. And certain people, such as Ali, are doing it properly. So that's what we're going to talk about in this episode. Ali himself is an accomplished sales trainer. He has closed, personally, $100 million worth of business. And you can find out more about him, his consulting, and everything that he does over at rosegardenconsulting.com. And yeah, with all that said, let's jump into today's episode. Hi, Ali, and welcome to the Salesman Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Will.
You are more than welcome, sir. Okay, today we're going to talk about sales training, what you do right, what most people do wrong. It's a massive bugbear for me. I think the industry is decades out of date. It needs a massive kick in the arse, and there's not many people that are really shifting things forward. I think it's a multi-billion-dollar a year industry that is quite stagnant, and so I'm really intrigued to get your insights on all this. And where I want to start is, so the salespeople listening to this, the B2B salespeople, they are listening to a podcast like this because they want to get better at sales, they want to earn more money, they want to upgrade their skill set. But those very same people, if they're sat in an office right now, if someone walked in and said, guys, ladies, we're going to do some sales training today, all of them would be sighing, their eyes rolling, they wouldn't be motivated for it, they wouldn't be excited about it. Why do you think there's a gap there between, because these are the same people that are listening now, why do you think there's a gap there between people hate sales training corporately in the office, generally speaking, but they're willing and able and want to improve their sales skills out of the office?
I think the disconnect really comes in with really it just boils down to anytime us as human beings were forced to do something, we instantly don't want to do it. And I'm your poster child for that. I mean, my wife tells me to do something, not consciously, but I just somehow have if I'm forced to do something, I just don't want to do it. So I think a lot of it really lies on, when you're forced to sit through an 8-hour lecture or 1 hour lecture or whatever the fact it is, if you feel you have no control, instantly your guard is up, you're a lot more tense. And then that also comes, it relates to their previous experience with sales training. A lot of sales training is very dry, it's boring. It almost always is heavily product knowledge related. It's not actually sales training, it's product knowledge training. But they tell you it's sales training. And then for the last 5 minutes, they tell you, oh, by the way, this is how you tell your client about it when they've bored you to death about it. So I think that those are the main reasons why people hate it when they're forced to take on sales training via the corporation or their manager, but will seek it out on their own. And then that's also indicative to the fact that there is a clear disconnect between what you're receiving versus what you go and seek out on your own.
Definitely. Okay, so we're going to come back to this idea of it being forced because I've never really thought about that, and the psychology behind that is fascinating. But coming back to something you said after that, how much percentage-wise do you think makes up what an expert, top 1% salesperson of their skill set? How much of it is product knowledge? How much of it is being good at sales? Which is more important?
Sales, absolutely. I mean, okay, I don't know whether this is controversial or not, but here's the thing. A this is just a real life fact if you just look at the principle of it. A salesperson, regardless of whether they're selling widgets or pennies or whatever it is that they're selling, typically they're the number one salesperson from company to company, whichever company they go to. And salespeople, just as a whole, have a very good habit of up and quitting or getting themselves fired very quickly, regardless of what their numbers are. So they're always bouncing around here and there. But their numbers are always consistently among the top. You cannot learn everything you need to about a product within a month. I mean, of course, depending on the product, but as a general whole, you're not always going to be able to learn everything. So it's not necessarily product knowledge. It's about knowing certain things about the product and then how to articulate it and understanding, okay, given this particular feature or given this particular benefit, how does this translate to the client? How am I supposed to express and communicate to the client why they need it, why it's important to them? I think that that's kind of the most important thing.
For sure.
And so,
And loaded question here because it's going to be a 4-minute interview if the answer is not what I'm expecting. But all these sales skills learnable? Or
yes.
and okay, from that then, how much of this comes down to hustle, hard work, improving your skills versus being, having some kind of sales gene or naturally being good at it? Which is more important?
It's the hard work. I
Yeah.
mean, there in my opinion, I mean, I'm no botanist or I'm no geneticist, but I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think that there's a sales gene. The only thing that are born are baby boys and baby girls. Salespeople are trained. Some people just have a very good personality, but I've seen lots of really enthusiastic, personable people be horrible salespeople, and lots of fairly what you would consider introverted as far as top salespeople go. They're excellent salespeople because they know the skills, they have the steps. So I mean, of course, having a good personality goes hand in hand with being a good salesperson, but that's not the only thing, and that's not the only determinant of success.
And just to follow up on that, because we've talked about this on the show before, the idea of having a good personality for sales, or being introverted, extrovert, I don't think that matters. But your personality, you've got to be an interesting person for people to find you interesting and want to do business with you. But that, again, it's not a skill. But if you're boring, go and learn to ride a motorbike, or go and start jumping out of planes, or go and read more books. I think that's something that's really underrated in the world of sales. Of you, the individual salesperson, if you're boring as heck, and you've got no friends and no one likes you, in the world of business, it's going to be the same because that's you as a person. You can't just
Correct.
put on a front, and you can't just learn a bit about body language and sit one way and then move when the other person moves and instantly become an interesting person.
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, at the end of the day, it's irrelevant whether you're an interesting person in sales. It's just if you're an interesting person, you're an interesting person. If you're not an interesting person, that's going to translate to pretty much all other aspects of your life, not just sales. So, I mean, so just exclusively look at it and say, well, if you're not interesting, that instantly means you're a bad salesperson. Well, no, that probably to some extent will speak more volumes about the rest of your life along with your success in sales. But if you're successful in sales, but you're not the most interesting person, you're probably doing other things to make yourself successful. So you probably are somewhat interesting. You're just not really showcasing it.
Definitely. Okay, so I want to paint a picture here, and this is a stereotype that I've faced in the past.
Mm-hmm.
You come in the office, there's 100 odd salespeople there, we're doing sales training today, and it's some dude who hasn't sold anything for 20 years, and he's probably, and this is a massive stereotype, I know, but he's probably an older gentleman. He probably was successful 20 years ago, pre-internet, when cold calling was king, where, and obviously things have changed. The tools that we sell by have changed, even though the sales method perhaps hasn't. Why is most corporate sales training that, and not someone coming in talking about new technologies, or this, or the conversation that we're having and the conversation that people are tuning into in their free time, the listeners of this show? Why is it not more like this?
I would hazard a guess of two reasons. One being just simply, I don't believe there really are very many other younger sales trainers out there. If someone is in sales training, they're more than likely an employee that's just put in that role. They're just training people. But as far as an entrepreneur who started a sales company, I'm a millennial, but I have not run across another millennial that's a sales trainer or has a sales firm. Again, majority of the people that I've run across, some of my bigger competitors, they are older gentlemen. Some that have evolved with times. Majority have not. But so that's one thing. But I think the other thing also is you get a disconnect with who the VP of sales is versus who's actually selling. So you'll get this, let's go with the stereotype. You get this older gentleman, um, comes in and says, "Hey, VP of Sales, Rob, I want to train your salespeople." That VP of Sales is probably on the same line, same generation as a sales trainer. So they instantly connect. They say, "Oh yeah, you're talking about all the same stuff I did when I used to sell. Yeah, great, come in here." Versus if I was to go in and talk to that VP of Sales, if he's not open-minded, and if this or should stop saying he, but if this individual is not open-minded, they're probably going to discount me. So it's a much more of an uphill battle for me to sell my services versus it is for this, baby boomer to come in there and sell their services. So it's one part supply. So there's limited supply as far as that goes, but then the other part is the demand. So the people who are hiring these salespeople are looking for people that are just like them, and then that's how you get stale, stagnant ideas that just kind of just get regurgitated over and over again, and nothing innovative comes. So you look at sales training stats, pre-sales training, post-sales training. I mean, there may as well not have been any sales training.
Yeah,
it's the same.
I've never genuinely had any sales training in the big corporate companies that I've worked in that has really moved the needle more than a week. Obviously, you get motivated and you get excited, and then you kind of forget about it and go back to your old routine. And I guess part of it is the follow up and that kind of thing. And do you, when you go into companies, you do the sales training, how do you get past that point of we're all motivated, we're all happy, but then eventually you just slump back into where you were previous?
Right. So basically, one thing you said there is, you get the first week that is somewhat successful because you're full of piss and vinegar. You walk out there and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna become a billionaire now, and then you eventually fall into old habits. That's good sales training. You come out of there motivated if you received somewhat good sales training. Majority of it is obviously bad. So the sales training you received was probably somewhat decent. That at least it motivated you. I've walked out of sales training being like, man, what the hell? Like now I need to go home and take a nap because I'm exhausted because it was terrible. So that's one part. But getting back to your question, at the end of the day, where I'm different, and I guess that's kind of what your question was, is what I do differently to avoid that. I go in there and I don't have a predetermined agenda of how I'm going to explain to these people. I know what I want to explain to them. Don't get me wrong, I'm not coming in there, talking out, but I don't have the how already figured out because I want to figure these people out. I want to figure out what motivates them. At the end of the day, I'm teaching them to sell, but really I'm selling my services. I need to sell them and communicate to them why. It's not just simply a transfer of enthusiasm at this point. It's a little bit more than that. So I need to figure out what they're currently doing. I need to, and get them to admit to what they're doing, the good stuff and the bad stuff, from the way that they see it. Then second to that, then I need to explain to them, I need to hopefully, in just getting them to explain to me what they do, hopefully at that point they figure out, oh, wait, maybe I'm not doing it right. And that's like one of those big light bulbs that will go off. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people are just doing things, not really realizing that what it is that they're doing, and until they really stop, take inventory, and figure out, oh wait, this is what I'm doing. Well, that doesn't make any sense. So right there, they may have their aha moment. But then once I get them to regurgitate what they're doing, then I can break it down for them and say, okay, you probably lost a sale here, here, and here because you said this, this, and this. So now that I've systematically and logically explained to them why they're doing what they're doing wrong, I'm short of some guy or someone just simply, nope, I'm not going to listen to Ali, and I'm not going to, majority of people are pretty responsive to that because they do feel a little bit more of a connection that at least I took the time to not just come in here thinking I'm Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, and, hey, this is the way it's going to be. I'm taking one step back and saying, okay, what are you guys doing? Maybe some of it's working and probably some of it isn't as well. So let's look at that. And then when I do implement my program and my system, and I don't just simply tell them, here's your script, read it over again and read it like this. I go a little bit deeper. I explain to them what the important parts of the script are, what the important words to emphasize are, but why. The why is very important. So, because inevitably, like you said, after a week of me leaving, everyone's just going to revert back to their old techniques. But if they understand why and they personalize the script, that's all right. They're inevitably going to change the script. But if they change the script, hopefully they'll do it with my logical formula. And so the message isn't lost. The words are different, that's fine, but the message isn't lost. So hopefully then they can still communicate the message to their client or their prospect. And then, we'll get the desired result.
So what you're doing, if I get this right, and this is what salespeople should be doing with their customers, you're coming in and you're not just preaching a methodology. You're actually consulting, seeing what's going right, what's going wrong, and adding real value to the individuals and the individual organization, not just coming in doing a keynote, 10 ways to cold call, and then shooting off in your nice Jaguar and then going to your next call.
Yes, correct.
And so this is brilliant. So this is exactly how salespeople need to change their pitch, rather than going from feature and benefit. Do you want the product? They need to be doing what you're doing, which is a great example of being a consultant and getting into the nooks and crannies and customizing things. But something you said then, which really intrigued me, you're trying to find out what people are doing, whether it's good and it's bad, and you're talking about the individual. So for sales training specifically, whose responsibility is this? Is it the person listening to this podcast? Should they be going out reading books, perhaps hiring yourself or hiring someone as a coach? And obviously, if you do it right, the money that you're going to spend is going to come back to you tenfold in commissions, better jobs, better positions, promotions, and all that good stuff. Or is it the responsibility of the company? Should they take charge of their sales teams, and should it be sales management, sales VPs? But then you get into the weird thing, which we started the show on, of you're forcing your sales team to go down a path. So it might be less effective. Whose responsibility is it? The person, the individual, or the company?
I'll give you one of my wannabe philosopher answers. The responsibility is whoever wants the success. That's whose responsibility is. So if as a salesperson you want to be successful, it's your responsibility. As a sales manager, if you want your sales team to be successful, and inevitably, you'll be getting overrides from them, and of course you'll be successful as well. Then it's your responsibility as a VP of sales. You want to move up to CEO at the end of the year during the general meeting. Then you want your sales teams to hit their targets. Rather than sitting there trying to justify, well, you know what, it was a bad year, a bad market, that's why we didn't hit our numbers. It's the responsibility of whoever wants the success. So, but at the end of the day, what I'm really trying to say there is it's everyone's responsibility. From top down, if the VP could care less about the performance of the sales team, well, that's going to show. Same with the sales managers and the salespeople. So the salespeople, as a salesperson, you can only control your own actions. You cannot control your sales manager. You cannot control your clients. You try to maintain control, but at the end of the day, if the client says no, I mean, you're going to rebuttal and you're going to do your objection handling. You're going to do everything, but at the end of the day, you're not going to close everybody, and that's just a cold hard fact that you need to learn and understand. And it's a numbers game at the end of the day. So stay motivated, read books, read as much as you can. There's some really good books out there, not all mine. There's other people have really good books and really good methodologies out there as well. I learned from them. I've got mentors that I'd say are fantastic. And then there's some people that are out there that you should probably stay away from.
What's a good book that you'd recommend for someone who is listening to this going, I'm motivated, I want to take control, I want to take responsibility? What's the first sales book? Because none of my colleagues at the companies I used to work at ever read sales books, ever.
Best sales book, I think it's been beaten to death, but it's how to win friends and influence people. It's not a sales book, right? But at the end of the day, it's a people book. It's how to talk and interact with people. That, I would say, is probably the best book. If you're walking into sales and you think you're somewhat introverted, or even if you are an extrovert, it's about controlling your extrovertness. Because I've walked into sales appointments. I used to be a sales manager, and I walked into sales appointments with some of my agents, and they're really excitable, really nice people, and they're in there and they won't A, shut up, and B, they're just going on and on and on, and they're just too much. It's too much. So being an extrovert is not the be all end all. It's about being the right amount of introvert, extrovert. It's about being the right amount. and finding that equilibrium. So that's the most important thing. So how to win friends and influence people, that's going to teach you how to do that. And then, you know, I'm I'm a devout Brian Tracy follower. I mean, the guy is great. And what I find different about him versus all the other sales trainers of the past is that his approach is more people approach. You know, get people to like you. I hate when people say, "Oh, you know, our sales process is very consultative." Every time I've heard that from a company saying our sales process is very consultative, that basically tells me you don't have a close. That's what that tells me, is that you just sit there becoming their best friend, tell them, "Hey, I'm going to really make you a lot of money," and then you kind of stop, hoping they say, "Yeah, sure. Here's a check." So his is a little bit past that. It is a little consultative. But it's not a hard, "I'm going to shove it down your throat," like some of the old guys that just basically say, you know, people don't have to like you. You just have to present your product, and you have to find the right need for them and reduce to ridiculous and things like that. And it's like, you know what, people can see that stuff a mile away. Maybe that worked 20 years ago. I don't know. I wasn't selling 20 years ago. But people are changing. I mean, you know, wearing a suit and tie now, you're a hipster. I mean, the average person walks into an office, a corporate Fortune 500 office, and then they're not wearing that. So the fringe is no longer the fringe. The fringe is the norm, and the norm is now the fringe. So
we're taking over, Ali. That's what's happening. Millennials have gone, "Oh, I've seen my dad wear this suit. He hates wearing it. He's clean shaven. He cuts himself every morning. It's a pain in the ass. I just want to have a little bit of a beard." I've talked about this on the show before as well. I got so much stick. Medical device company that I worked at last time, I got rinsed by all the sales teams. Had a little bit of a beard. It was cut round here for anyone on watching on YouTube. So it was smart. It was all like, it looked professional. There was no problem with it. All of the sales team, and most of them were middle-aged blokes versus I was, say, 22, 24 at the time. They all had to go at me, and it all came to a head at a national sales meeting. I just went to the big boss, and I just said to him, "Look," everyone was drinking in this pub at the time. I just said to him, "Look, is this an issue? Are you bothered? Like, have you not got better things to do than to be bothered about this?" Everyone gathered round because I was going to get roasted by I think his title was not VP, director of sales, whatever it is. And he just turned around and went, "Look, lad, don't give a shit, mate. Just keep selling." And that was it. That was the whole fiasco. He has an affinity for millennials, and he could understand that this change in this process, and there's me, you, Ali, that were going on, and our age are now becoming sales management, sales directors, and the everything's shifting along those lines. And coming back to the beginning of the show, we were talking about personality and how that's important. And you mentioned something that followed back up with that then, of how to win friends and influence people. And this is how I think about sales as well. I think there's only so far you can get. You need to have a process in place so it's repeatable. You can see where things are getting screwed up. You can learn from your mistakes, and you can optimize things. But I think for a lot of the people listening, and for me as well, a lot of it just comes down to your personality, whether you are good at winning friends and influencing people. It's a personality trait and skill which you can develop versus a body language this or verbal communication that. And I think when you get really congruent with it, and it all wraps down into this package, that you are just this interesting person that has a lot of industry knowledge that can add value to customers without going through consultative selling questions 1 to 5. You're just genuinely interested in the business, and you've got knowledge you can share with them that can actually help them make money, never mind the product and everything else that you're offering on top of that. I think that's where things go right. And just to wrap that part of the show up, I've got a couple of questions to ask everyone that comes on. The first one is, who do you think is the world's greatest salesperson?
Me.
Is that you genuinely, or is that you and everyone else are their own greatest salesperson?
You know what? I honestly don't know. I haven't, been on a sales call with every single person. But the way that I look at it is, there's no one person that can sell everyone. There's just some people that are bad bobs right down to the core, and their whole job is, the better that you are, the more they're getting out of saying no to you. So, being a good salesperson, you just sometimes have to accept that, my commission on this one may be $100,000, but the amount of time I'm going to spend with Bad Bob here, I could have probably sold 3 other people. So
Mhm.
that's really who the best salespeople are the ones that can identify right away who's a loser of time, and then where are your winning prospects. So um, I don't believe that there's one person that can close everybody. There's different personalities that match with other people. I know where my weaknesses, well, I wouldn't say weaknesses, but I know where my shortcomings are as far as who I don't have the greatest success with. And then there's certain people that I have, it's almost like shooting fish in a barrel, that every
Mhm.
single time I talk to this type of individual, it's almost a guaranteed sale. So everyone's got their ups and downs, but I think that I truly, truly, truly believe it. I will close more deals than anybody else.
Awesome. Okay, from that then, what motivates you to close more deals?
Money. If you get a sales guy that says anything other, either he's lying or he's not true. But I mean, money is the most important factor, the commission of it. But really,
And
at the
deeper
end of
than
the day,
that, let me interrupt you there.
but
So,
deeper than that, it would be my love for sales. I mean, I really love just sitting there and talking to somebody and figuring out what the need is, and they throw a few objections at you, and being able to overcome them logically and of course ethically, right? Let's not forget that. You don't want to shove something down someone's throat, but you know that this is the right fit for this person. This person is just being resistant simply as a result of being resistant. Um, you know, and then you are able to overcome that, and then you actually have helped them. Your solution has actually helped them. That is kind of like a little ego bump where
so yeah.
hey,
So is this because you're competitive and you want to win? Because I like this. When I have a difficult sell, my brain and the nice answer is I love sales, I love helping people, but in reality, I like beating that person.
yeah,
And it sounds perhaps weird saying it out loud, but I like beating that person and 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 showing them the value that I can give because obviously I believe in the value of the product and service that I'm selling. So when I beat them, obviously then I'm not really beating them. We're now on the same team, but for my brain to work and for me to be motivated, I've got to beat them, and that hustle is what like really drives me, other than the money angle of it.
correct. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I'm a very competitive person, even if I know, and not maybe sales related, but like I'm a big basketball guy. I love basketball. It's pretty much the only sport I can play. I'm horrible at everything else. But even if I know I'm probably going to lose to this guy, I'll still talk trash.
Yeah.
I still will, and I'll let him beat. I'll take the loss. That's fine. But I'm not going to just succumb to him and say, "Oh wow, you're better than me." I'll make some excuse or something. So it's got this competitive drive that I have. So I think, of course, the money is the at the end of it that you get the reward. So of course you have to have that in mind and be chasing it. But at the same token, what's during that? Before you get to the money, what's motivating you through and through? And you're right. It is the competitive drive. I love, again, not in an unethical way, because this can be taken very quickly in the wrong way. It's if you've identified that, look, this is the right fit, this guy is just simply saying no for the sake of saying no, or because that's just what he's used to saying, or maybe he's just that competitive. He thinks that, if he says yes, he's going to lose. I love that. That really motivates me.
Awesome. And final one for me, if you could go back in time and speak to your younger self, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give him to help him become better at sales?
Oh, I was okay. So my advice would be stop being an idiot. You know, I used to work at an insurance company, the agency where I was then a sales manager. It was legitimately like the Wolf of Wall Street without all the drugs, the without the drugs, alcohol, and the prostitutes. Other than that, it was, we were a group of young guys that were making way too much money and behaving way too arrogantly to each other and to our managers. We were very disrespectful. So I think that, I got a reality check, and that's really when I kind of took a step back and kind of went my own direction, because I was going to head down a path that definitely wasn't where I wanted to go. So the advice that I'd give to myself is, never drink your own Kool-Aid. Don't ever think that you're too good. You're too cool for school, or you're too good for anything. Always be in a position to learn. And anytime you speak to somebody, regardless of whether they're older than you or younger than you, start off by giving them respect. Let them lose the respect in your eyes, but you hold yourself to a high regard. Give them respect, and then further to that, just simply always be looking to learn. Always be looking to learn, because I think during between probably 22 to 24 or so, I thought, man, I know exactly what I'm doing, and I'm going to keep doing it. And I don't know where I'd be today had I not hit that little plateau.
And what kicked you out of that? Was it meeting someone? Was it a mentor? Was it a relationship? What changed you? Because I was in the same position of earning a crap load of money, doing really well, and then my mum got cancer, so that was my shift. I've had to move back up north to be closer to her, different jobs, different people. Did you have a shift which changed you from being perhaps arrogant but successful into what you're doing now?
Nothing that drastic, but basically, when as I mentioned, we were quite disrespectful. Our district manager, we were very disrespectful to him. I mean, he was not a very nice guy, but at the same token, I think we probably brought out his not his nicest way. So right before our quarterly bonuses, he fired all of us.
Wow.
And so, it was a big bonus that I missed out on. And that kind of, at first, it's screw him and it's his fault. And, we're going to sue him, and we're going to do all this type of stuff. And then, kind of a week or two later, you kind of calm down and you kind of come off of your high horse. And, I kind of just realized that, yes, while what he did was wrong, I didn't exactly, I wasn't exactly the model employee. I mean, I would make it my mission to show up late every single morning for the morning meetings. So, I mean, I wasn't an employee, but I mean, it was an agency structure, so I was an independent contractor. But when you've got someone that's a subordinate behaving like that, I mean, maybe he didn't have to do it right the week before we got our bonuses, so then I didn't get my bonus. But at the end of the day, I didn't leave him overly too much choice. So I think that kind of really grew me up a lot. So I had to, I took a couple months off and did a little bit of the soul searching, got fat, and didn't really do anything. Blew all my money, and then said, okay, gotta go back to work.
Fantastic. Well, what I got from then was taking the responsibility, and that's something that we've talked about throughout the show. So I think that's a great point to wrap up on. And with that, Ali, I want you to tell us a little bit about Rose Garden Consulting, what you do there, and how the audience can find out more if they want to get you involved.
Well, basically what we do is, in a nutshell, in a very simple way, is we will grow your sales, period. Okay, so regardless of where you are, whether you're an entry-level startup or you're a maturing company with 25 years experience, I've worked with both, I've done fantastic work with both types, on other opposite end of the spectrum and everything in between. We do that in two ways. One, we will actually develop a program for you and implement it, or just train your sales staff with our, kind of our off-the-shelf programs. All the training, implementation, and development gets done by me personally. So I will be the one in there making all my funny jokes, getting everybody lively, getting them all excited and motivated, which is part of it, but then also giving them some true value and some real nuggets that they're going to say, oh, okay, I was doing it this way. And then the other thing that we do here at Rose Garden, you know what? I always say, those who cannot do, teach. We put our money where our mouth is. We will actually sell your product for you. So if you're not a volume distributor or anything like that, and you kind of just have one-off deals, and you need someone to come in there, not necessarily negotiate it, because at that point, most of the work is done. We'll go right from the beginning, prospecting, figuring out which verticals we need to attack, right down to talking to decision makers, getting around the gatekeepers. We'll establish all the connects. We're going to get your product in there. We're going to get them to consider it. We're going to close it. We're going to take it through and through. So we put our money where our mouth is, and that's why our training is so good, is because we're still selling to this day. We weren't selling 20 years ago, so we're selling today, and we know what it takes to sell today. So that's why our programs reflect that, and that's why they're so effective.
Amazing. And where can they find out more about you? Is it your website? Have you got an email you want to share? My
website is www.rosegardenconsulting.com. Twitter handle is @RGCSales. So that's ROSEGARDENCONSULTING.com. You check us out, shoot me an email, contact us, and I personally will get back to you.
Amazing stuff. We'll link to all that in the show notes over at salesman.red. And with that, Ali, I want to thank you for your time, mate. I want to thank you for joining us on the Salesman Podcast.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Will. I really appreciate it.
And there we have it. I just want to thank Ali for coming on the show. I appreciate it. Some good, candid insights to sales training, the sales training industry, and a whole bunch more from him in that episode. I hope you, the listener, enjoyed the episode. As always, there'd be no show without you. And with that, I will speak with you again tomorrow.